Okay, doing a little walk around of a 2022 SWM 500. Brand new here. Just got it yesterday. Picked it up from Screwy Louie's in Phoenix, Arizona. There's $1,000 off on these now. It's February 2023. And so they're listed for $72.99. This is a pure off-road version, but it comes with all the wiring harness and the switches for adding a horn, turn signals. Of course, it's electric start. So it's in mirrors. It's got little screw pods for mirrors here on both sides, and some really cheesy hand guards, but they work. They were kind of a pain to install, but they're on. You can see this one does not have the O2 sensor. One of the things I like about SWM is they're putting these heat shields. We don't need burns when we crash or lay the bike over on us. We just don't need that. I suppose if you're a motocrosser, that's fine. It's got the dreaded automatic kickstand, which you can probably cut that bolt off, and on KTM's we just replace it with another bolt, or cut them off, I think, if I remember right. It's got a WRP exhaust, pretty loud. I'd rather it be a little quieter. One of the things that it did is it was bent a little bit, and I pulled it back, but you can see it hit the exhaust there with this big meaty 140 by, what is that, a 140, yeah, I can't find it, 140 80 18. Some of the things I've done to it: tighten all the bolts. I like to put underneath the perches, I like to put Teflon tape so that the levers can move up and down, and I move the levers in, as you can see, so that if you crash, you're less likely to break the lever to hit on the handlebars, which is where you want. And then it gives you a longer leverage ratio on this clutch, which is a little bit stiff and spongy. Seems like the adjustment has been going in and out on it. When I get some mineral oil, I will bleed that. Today's the first day I rode it, so I took the forks and put it up on a stand, and of course loosened the bolts on the lugs, spun the wheel and grabbed the front brake, and then pushed the forks up and down to center it, so it centers everything on those lugs. That's one of the proper ways of doing that. I'm sure the internet will not like how I did that, but tough. Tightened all, like I say, all the bolts, checked all those. Came a little bit low on the fluid in the reservoir there. I'm talking just a couple ounces, so not really a big deal. This one has a firepower battery in it. I do like this easy off on the seat. It's got a firepower battery, but it's not a lithium battery. It's lead acid. The seat's actually quite comfortable. That was a complaint about some of the older ones. Looks like they did a different one, but yeah, I'm really happy with the seat. Super grippy. I always write on the reservoir, and then down on the forks what the stock settings are, so I always know where to go back to. I put some fork bleeders on here. I believe those are Motion Pro brand. I like to do that because it takes some of the harshness away. So far the suspension's pretty good. I've got some adjustments to do on it, but it's not, everything's not broken in. I do like the fact that it comes with, you know, the rear brake light is activated. Same with, it works on the front as well. So like I say, putting some blinkers on here will be pretty easy. There's some of these LED ones that, there's a company that I can't remember the name of it right now, but they're super cheap, and you can put blinkers on. I think you can run them right up along here, and just anyway, pretty good idea. Foot pegs are a little bit narrow. Don't really like that. Gonna look for something alternative. I don't believe it has a spark arrestor. I could stick something way down in there. So I've got to get something figured out for that. It does have that flame out, which technically it's not a flame out, but we're going to call it that. The internet wants to call it that. So it does do that flame out, and I don't really like that. I've got to put some more time on it. Maybe as things loosen up, engine loosens up a little bit, maybe that will go away. But I really like how I'm 6 foot tall, and I really like how open the cockpit is on this. That is, it's really easy for me to stand up on. I didn't do anything, didn't put taller bars or anything on, which does kind of monkey with your ergonomics. So the motor's not super powerful. I don't like a powerful motor. It's really torquey, except for, like say, right off of idle. Then it wants to stall. But maybe that'll go away. I hope I don't have to do some remapping stuff. KYB suspension, which of course, if you read about it, it's the good stuff. This maybe isn't their best KYB stuff. I'm not really sure of that. But I don't care. It works pretty well so far. These Michelin low knobby DOT tires, boy, I tell you, I actually kind of like them so far. And it does have quite a bit of protection built in. It's got this aluminum skid plate that goes on the front and then these side guards. So I was all worried about putting a skid plate on it. I may not do that right now. I may take the chance. I don't do any hard enduro, if you want to call it that, with this bike. I have a KTM 250 XCW 2-strokes that I would prefer to do that on. But this is kind of my dual sport bike now. I had a KLX 300 2022. I just sold it. I put 6,500 miles on it. And thankfully, due to COVID, I was able to get, lost about 800 bucks on it. So I rode it all that for $800. So I'm pretty happy about that. Let's see. When I got it, the gas cap leaked, and the gasket that's in here, it was kind of messed up a little bit. The gasket wasn't down below the thread there, and so it was leaking. And I just noticed this doomahickey. What in the hell is this thing that goes on there, just to maybe make the tank look a little better? But it was cocked off like that after I put it on, so maybe that's causing some issues too. I don't see that lasting long. I'm going to get me one of those filter socks that goes down in there. But overall, real happy with it. On starting, seems to start a little hard. So there's a choke right there. I use that almost every time other than when it's real hot. But I'm just getting used to everything, so calm down. 6-speed transmission is nice, close ratio, but the speedometer says it goes 60 super easy, and that's been something I had a hard time finding any information out. Looks like I hit 70 on it, and it was 5,500 RPMs. I'll get some more information, maybe do a little more testing and data logging on that. I want to check it with my phone GPS, but I don't have a phone mount on here yet. I do use the compression. I tried that, the compression release. The motor certainly spins a little easier, than you can let that out, and seems to make it start better. I know there's some known starter issues here, so I'll keep my eye on that, and some known fuel pump issues. And at some point I'll pull the tank off and take a look at the fuel pump and see if Takomoto has a fuel pump that they developed and had made or sourced that's supposed to be super durable compared to KTM Husky pumps. So we'll see if that's the same pump. And that, I think it's $149. I ride a lot out in the middle of nowhere by myself, so that may be something I put on here. I don't like modifying bikes much. Everything you do to a motorcycle oftentimes decreases reliability, other than like protection parts. So I like to keep them reasonably stock. I don't need any more power, nor does most people. Unless you're Eli Tomac, you don't really utilize the maximum power of any of these machines. Most of the time, as Jimmy Lewis will say, shift a gear and twist the throttle and you'll go faster. And I agree with that. And I don't care about going fast. I'm a sightseer now. I like seeing the mountains, and wherever I happen to be at, I like to tour around. I live on the road, traveling, riding dirt bikes. So it's interesting to see this beautiful country that we have. If you watch the news, we're a terrible country, but we are an incredible country with incredible people. And we're fortunate that there's so much land out west here that you can utilize for free. So that's about the end of everything. I've not heard the fan come on, the radiator fan. It's probably 60 degrees here today. And I have about 16 PSI in the tires. I just started out with that. I'm gonna lower that. I like the tires to act as suspension. I'm not worried about pinch flats. I'm not hitting anything that hard. I'm an old man, don't want to do that. It had a twin air filter. It was oiled well, appeared like, and sealed well. Looks like whoever installed that did a good job. All the bolts were tight. Spokes seem to be about 55 inch-pounds of torque on my spoke torque wrench. Put this cheesy little MSR mirror on here. I've been using these bug eyes mirrors that glue to your helmet. I kind of like that. One on each side. Then when I'm standing up, I can see in the mirrors as well, because I stand up a lot. So I prefer to have the mirrors on my helmet. As of now, that may change. Not sure the accuracy of the speedometer. I will check that, as I said, with the GPS. I do like the fact that it has some that color, or whatever that is, like a gray matte finish hubs. Front brake is a Brembo. It's not super strong yet. May have had some oil or something on there that I didn't clean it with brake cleaner when I got it. Still seating them in, so I mean, it's strong enough for me. I can pull harder if I need to. That's not a problem. But I'm real happy with it. I'm surprisingly happy with it. For the money, probably saved, you know, $4,000 to $5,000 off of a KTM 500. Is a KTM a better bike? Well, I don't know. I mean, these Husky engines were super durable, and the other thing about it is I ride easy and I maintain the crap out of them. This has 1.7 quarts of oil, or 1700 cc's. I can't remember. So that's another added bonus to this unit. So overall, so far, very happy, and put some more hours on it. Maybe I'll make another video. I'm not much for making videos, but I think I had a hard time finding information on these, and so I thought I'd do the best I could. It does have the low beam and high beam built in, so that's good. Anyway, hope that was helpful, and I think so far, I think they're a terrific machine for the money. I just couldn't find anything that made more sense than this. So I'll put more time on it, and I'll get back at you. Get out and ride. Have an awesome day. Okay, working on finishing up with the SWM, the prep work. Took the front end all apart, greased the steering head bearings, just finishing that job up. They had a fair amount of grease on them for a modern day bike. Sometimes they don't put a lot on them, but this was okay. But I like to put Lucas Oil Super Tacky, and I packed the bearings, you know, much more densely than they had them. Same thing with the front wheel bearings. Popped the seals out, and then I popped the sealed bearing seal off of there and forced more grease into those, waterproof grease. I used some Motorex brand. Comes in this squeeze tube, so you can force it down in there, or you can use a grease gun with a tube. So I put more grease in those. And when you do that, I'm from the Midwest, so we ride in a lot of water. So then you just don't have wheel bearing problems. I did the same on the rear. Pop the seals out. You got to take a snap ring out, Takes a pretty good sized set of snap ring pliers for both the front and rear to hold those bearings in, but it's doable. And I put a filter skin on the air filter. Gonna center the bars. They weren't quite centered properly. And a lot of the connectors are these, you know, basically cheap non-sealed connectors. You can buy replacement sets and fix those with some sealed connectors. I may do that at some point. I don't ride in a lot of wet stuff anymore, but pressure washing and stuff. But what I do is I will put some dielectric grease in there, and then on these ends here I squirt some stuff called fluid film, which is right here. It's made from lanolin or sheep wool. Make sure you go through the proper procedure to torque the fork bolts, especially these pinch bolts, because they will actually collapse or deform the tube or to where the damper rods will bind up in there and cause a lot of debris in your forks and just make them work poorly. So torque those to the right specs. I couldn't really find any, so I'm torquing them to about 12 foot-pounds or 144 inch-pounds. Same thing with these pinch bolts. There's a whole process you go through. Look in the manual. It's online under the Facebook forums, not forums, but Facebook pages. If you go up into the files, they'll have the full manual that goes through that whole explanation. Each bike kind of does it differently. I did Loctite. I like to Loctite most of the bolts. So especially these subframe bolts, I removed the subframe to grease the swing arm. The swing arm had a fair amount of grease in it, but there's no seals on it, so you want to make sure you put enough grease around that outer bushing that goes in, and make sure you put a lot of waterproof grease on that. I did all the bearings in the linkage. You definitely want to take that apart when you get it. It was hit and miss as to which ones had grease in there. A couple of them were very limited. They're just needle bearings. And once you do that, if you're not riding in water or pressure washing the crap out of it, that will last a long time, because the grease really doesn't have a way to get out of there. The upper shock bolt is a Heim joint, and they're kind of a pain to grease, but just basically pop the seals out. They come out easy and force some grease in there. Same with the wheel bearings. When you pop the seals out, you can use a seal puller and be very gentle and work your way around the seal. Be careful to not tear the seal. You can do that if you take your time. So other than that, I'll probably pull the tank off at some point. I don't know if I'll video that, but I'll pull it off and check out to see if that fuel pump is the same one that Takamoto built one. Indestructible. I will try that maybe as a spare, or maybe just put it in initially at some point. The starter motor, apparently these aren't very good, and they were staked as far as markings on them, but I did put some black marks, so I may pull it off at some point and do a little, after, you know, a couple 100 miles, do a little preventative maintenance to see how that's faring inside. If you don't know what you're doing there, don't take it apart. Watch a video. There are a Ducati starter motor that apparently is better. Those are just preventative things for me, because I'll be out in the middle of nowhere. I also carry a jump pack, so if something goes wrong, I've got some battery power. I did put a lithium battery in there, an anti-gravity battery, and that particular battery has a button on it that you can push right there. If the battery dies, you leave the key on or whatever. That has a couple of extra starts built into it, so like a spare battery inside the battery. You can see the filter skin right there. This battery is a little smaller, so I like to put something over the positive cable, because you have to pull the battery out to get the air filter out, and you don't want to hit it on the frame rail. And you know, lithium battery's got a lot of power, so you don't want to do that. And then I like to put this in here because the original battery was a little bit taller. It's a lead acid. Firepower was the brand this one came with. It's so I don't want it bouncing around in there. What else? That's pretty much it. Not going to do a whole lot more. The clutch is a little mushy, and the adjustment doesn't stay. It seems to change. So I finally got some mineral oil. I will bleed that. And there's all kinds of online stuff there you can do. I may ultimately put some flex bars on there. These are rubber mounted, as you can see, like that. I know a lot of people don't like doing this, but I do put a little Loctite on the steering stem nut. As long as your fork upper pinch bolts are tight, your top triple clamp really won't come off, even if you lose that bolt, or that nut, I mean. But I don't like to take that chance, because that's not something I'm going to do very often. If I got to throw a little heat on it at some point, I put blue Loctite, it'd be fine. I run my steering stem with just a little bit of drag. Some say it acts as a steering stabilizer, but I don't know. But I run them reasonably tight, but not tight enough to cause any wear issues. So I'm going to wrap this up for now. Oh, I did balance the front wheel, and I'm going to finish tightening the spokes with a spoke wrench, making sure they're all snug, and I'll check that several more times. It's part of my regular maintenance. Anyway, have a great day. A couple more things that I forgot is I put on a wheel weight here. You can see those are held on by an Allen screw. After I tightened all the spokes, it's across from the wheel weight, or the rim lock. I put wheel weights on the front and the back. I like the bike to run smooth if I'm on gravel roads, or the times I am on pavement. I'm finishing up lubing the throttle cables. If you do that right now, then you don't really have to do that for a long time. I balanced the rear wheel as well. The way I like to do that on both wheels is to take the calipers off and the chain off, and make it so the wheel will spin freely. Pull the axle out, clean the grease out of the seals and off the axle, and I put some light lubricant on there so that it spins easily. And then I just balance it on the axle. You can make yourself a little stand, or you can buy them for about 80 bucks. I just use the axle, it's close enough. Anyway, I just wanted to follow up with that. Oh, the other thing is that these handlebars, you can loosen them down here on the rubber mount. You can spin this bottom piece around, and we'll open up the cockpit a little bit for taller people. And as you can see, it pushes up against the computer there, but not too bad. And then also, they came with these bolts sticking way out. They're the steering stop, and I like to, as a trials rider, I like my bikes to turn sharper, so I move them in until right before they hit. Over here it'd be on the tank, and on the other side it would be on the radiator cap. That way I have the tightest turning radius I can get. And that should probably wrap up everything for now. All right, see ya.